You didn't find this video by accident. Something inside you is stirring. Maybe you don't know what it is yet. Maybe you've been feeling a little restless lately, like you're not who you used to be, but not quite who you're meant to be either. That space in between, that uncomfortable, quiet place where nothing feels right and everything feels like it's shifting, that's the beginning. That's the moment before transformation. And here's the truth. You won't even see this message until you're standing at the edge of change. Until something in your life starts whispering, this isn't it anymore. It might look like burnout, like frustration, like waking up one morning and not recognizing the person in the mirror, not because you've fallen, but because you're finally waking up. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're evolving. But evolution isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It creeps in slowly, silently, like a crack in the foundation you've been standing on for years. And eventually you realize you can't keep building on what's no longer solid. You're here because some part of you is done pretending, done settling, done hiding behind excuses and fear. You're here because you're ready. Maybe not fully, maybe not confidently, but deeply. Ready to look your life in the face and say, something has to change, and that something is me. So let's talk about what really happens when you're on the edge of change. The signs, the shifts, the inner war, no one sees, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And from that point on, there's no going back. Ready? Good. Let's begin. There comes a moment in your life where you can't run from yourself anymore. You've made the excuses. You've repeated the same story to yourself so many times that it became comfortable, even when it was costing you everything. You convinced yourself that the timing wasn't right, that you didn't have enough support, that you were too tired, too old, too broken, too stuck. You looked at your circumstances and said, this is why I can't. And for a while that felt valid, but then something starts to shift. Slowly, quietly, deep inside of you. You wake up and that excuse, the one you've always leaned on, starts sounding hollow. You say it again, and instead of comfort, it brings shame. You hear your own voice and you don't believe it anymore. That's when the truth starts knocking. You've outgrown your own lies, and it hurt. Not because you failed, but because you realize how long you've stayed still. When you're really ready to change, you get sick of the sound of your own patterns. You get tired of explaining your life instead of living it. The story you told yourself to survive, that narrative starts to feel more like a prison than protection. You begin to see the price of playing small, the cost of settling, the weight of living beneath your potential. You notice how many times you've said, I'll start on Monday, but Monday comes and goes. You look around at all the unfinished things, the ideas you shelved, the promises you broke to yourself, the plans you never executed. And it hits you. The problem isn't life. The problem is the version of you that keeps postponing life. And this realization doesn't come like lightning. It comes like fatigue, a deep exhaustion with your own limitations, a kind of emotional burnout that doesn't make you angry at others. It turns the mirror on you. You don't need someone else to call you out. You start calling yourself out. You notice the patterns. You see the distractions for what they are. Scrolling, binge watching, numbing yourself with food, people, validation. All of it starts to feel like noise. It's not soothing anymore. It's stalling you. And you know it. So you stop blaming your job. You stop blaming your past. You stop pointing at your upbringing, your ex, your boss, your friends who don't support you, your lack of time, your lack of money. Because while all those things may be real, they're not the reason. They're the shield. And when you're ready to grow, the shield becomes the burden. You start to ask better questions. What if I'm in my own way? What if I've been choosing comfort over growth? What if I'm scared of who I'd have to become if I actually stepped up? What if I'm afraid of losing people who benefit from the weaker version of me? These aren't easy questions. They crack your comfort zone wide open. They challenge the identity you've built around being almost ready. They force you to confront the fact that being stuck is often a choice, not a sentence. You look back at all the times life gave you a window, an opportunity to shift, and you see how you talked yourself out of it. You remember the job you didn't apply for, the book you didn't write, the business you didn't start, the relationship you stayed in long after it served you. And you realize it wasn't fate, it wasn't timing, it was fear disguised as logic. And now, logic isn't cutting it anymore. Because your spirit is louder than your strategy. Your soul is tired of waiting for your ego to feel safe. You've hit that moment, the one where you'd rather be uncomfortable moving forward than stay comfortable staying stuck. The one where staying the same actually becomes more painful than risking change. That's the real shift. Not inspiration, not motivation. It's when your own excuses become unbearable. When the voice inside of you that whispers, "There's more," starts screaming. And no one sees it. No one celebrates it. There's no confetti, no finish line, no standing ovation. It's just you alone in a moment, quietly deciding, "I'm done lying to myself." From the outside, nothing looks different. You still go to work. You still show up, but inside, a fire has started. A silent revolution. You're no longer waiting. You're no longer defending your smallness. You're no longer entertaining the part of you that wants to stay invisible. Because here's the raw truth. You can't become the person you're meant to be while still protecting the excuses that are keeping you average. There's no magic formula. No one is coming to hand you discipline, drive, or consistency. You have to birth it from within, from pain, from hunger, from being so damn tired of being tired that you finally say, enough. That's the birth of change. And once you reach that point, there's no going back. Because even if you stumble, even if you fail, you'll never again believe the lie that you can't. You'll know it's just a matter of showing up again and again. Because you finally know your excuses are loud, but your potential is louder. And now you're finally listening. Pain isn't always a punishment. Sometimes it's a message, a turning point, a signal that something inside you is ready to wake up. Most people try to run from it, bury it, numb it, distract themselves with noise and chaos just to avoid feeling it. But the truth is, nothing transforms you more than pain when you finally stop running and start listening. When you're truly ready to change, something profound happens. Pain stops being the enemy and it becomes your fuel. At first, pain feels like it's going to crush you. It feels like failure, like rejection, like being misunderstood, unseen, undervalued. You go through heartbreak, betrayal, loss, and it feels unfair. You think, why me? You wonder what you did wrong. You start to believe. Maybe you're cursed. Maybe you're not good enough. Maybe life is just out to get you. But then something shifts. You start to see that the pain was never meant to break you. It was meant to break the version of you that could no longer take you where you need to go. You look back at your life, at the moments that hurt the most, and slowly you start to realize something. Those weren't endings, they were redirections, wake-up calls, moments where the universe or life or God, whatever you believe in, had to shake you out of your comfort zone because you wouldn't leave it on your own. The pain forces you to grow. And growth doesn't happen when things are easy. Growth is uncomfortable. It's inconvenient. It demands sacrifice. It requires letting go of who you were, even when you're not sure who you're becoming yet. And that process, it's painful, but it's also powerful. When you stop running from the pain and start leaning into it, you find something deeper: hunger. Pain wakes up your hunger to rise, to heal, to change. It makes you ask questions you've been avoiding. Why am I really here? What do I actually want? Who am I trying to become? And most importantly, what's been holding me back? Suddenly, your pain becomes the very thing that sharpens your vision. The clarity you never had when you were comfortable starts to appear. Stop tolerating people who drain you. You walk away from things that don't align anymore. You stop making excuses because now you understand how costly they really are. You stop begging for love, attention, validation, because now you've been through enough to know that what you really need is self-respect. That breakup that crushed you, it showed you your worth. That job you lost, it forced you to confront your potential. That rejection, it redirected you to a path where you actually belong. That failure, it humbled you, made you sharper, more disciplined, more resilient. Pain builds grit, it builds self-awareness, it teaches you how to sit in your own darkness and still believe that light is coming. It teaches you how to breathe when your chest is tight with anxiety, how to stand when your legs are shaking, how to show up when your heart is heavy. Pain turns you into someone that can't be easily broken because you've already been broken and you rebuilt yourself from the ground up. And once you've been there, once you've sat in the fire and refused to run, you become dangerous. Not to other people, but to the version of yourself that used to settle, the version that used to shrink, to stay silent, to stay in the background of your own life. That version can't survive in you anymore because pain already killed it. You don't need anyone to rescue you. Not anymore. Because you've seen what you're capable of surviving. You've learned that pain doesn't last, but what you build from it does. So now when life gets hard again, and it will, you don't panic, you don't fall apart the same way. You remember what you've already been through. You remember that there was a time when you thought you'd never get through it, but you did. That memory becomes your fuel. That strength becomes your standard, and your pain becomes your proof. You start using the hurt. You channel it into your workouts, into your art, into your business, into your healing, into your growth, into every area of your life that deserves more of you. You don't need everything to be perfect to make progress. You just need the fire. And pain gives you that fire. If you let it, you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And you start asking, what is this trying to teach me? You stop resenting your pain and you start respecting it because it's made you powerful. It's made you honest. It's made you relentless. This isn't about pretending pain doesn't hurt. Of course it hurts. But the difference now is that you're not running from it. You're using it. You're letting it burn away. The weakness, the denial, the excuses. You're letting it purify your path. You're letting it sharpen your focus. So if you're in pain right now, good. Don't waste it. Use it. Use it to rise. Use it to grow. Use it to transform. Because one day you're going to look back at this chapter, the one that nearly broke you, and say, that was the moment I found my power. And that's a version of you no one will be able to stop. There comes a time when the mask starts slipping, not just from the people around you, but from your own life. The stories you used to believe, the fantasies you clung to, the illusions you willingly entertained, they start to crack. And when you're ready to change, truly change, one of the most jarring things that happens is this. You start seeing things for what they really are. It's not a comfortable process. In fact, it's deeply unsettling because illusions are safe. They're pretty, they're comforting. They let you believe that everything is fine, even when it's not. They let you stay in a place that feels familiar, even if it's killing your growth. But change doesn't happen in comfort, and clarity never comes without some degree of pain. You begin to look at your life through a new lens, one that no longer filters things through what you wish was true. Suddenly you see the relationship you've been holding on to for years isn't love, it's codependency, it's routine, it's fear of being alone dressed up as connection. And when you finally see it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to pretending you're fulfilled when deep down you're starving emotionally. The job you thought was your dream, you start to realize it's draining you. Used to chase promotions, praise titles. Now you sit in meetings and ask yourself, is this all there is? You start to feel like you're wasting your life doing something that doesn't light you up, doesn't grow you, doesn't matter to you anymore. And that realization is terrifying because it means you have to either stay stuck or take a risk. The people around you, the ones you thought were your friends, you begin to notice how they only come around when they need something. You notice the subtle digs, the lack of support, the way your growth makes them uncomfortable. You've been calling it loyalty, but deep down you know you've been tolerating people who shrink you because you didn't want to feel lonely. Everything starts to become clear. And clarity, though it sounds like a gift, often comes wrapped in grief. Because seeing through the illusions means letting go of the version of your life you thought you had. It means shedding the skin of your past self. It means admitting you were wrong about some things and that you've outgrown others. It means stepping out of denial and walking straight into truth, even when that truth hurts. And maybe the hardest illusion to see through is the one you've built around yourself. You've told yourself for years that you're not ready, not smart enough, not strong enough, not talented enough. You've played small, quieted your voice, hidden your potential behind fake humility or fear of judgment. You've dimmed your light to make others comfortable. And now suddenly you realize you've been the one standing in your own way. You realize the narrative you've been living by isn't even yours. It was built by your past, by your wounds, by what other people told you, by what society made you believe you should be. You've been living someone else's script, playing a role in a life that doesn't belong to you anymore. And when that illusion breaks, when you see yourself clearly, both your flaws and your power, something liberating happens. You stop needing permission. You stop performing. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You start cutting through the noise, the fake smiles, the forced connections, the endless chasing of things that never really filled you anyway. You stop caring about keeping up the appearances and start focusing on building substance. You stop trying to impress and start trying to impact. You begin to crave truth, realness, alignment, depth, not perfection, but authenticity. You want people around you who challenge you, support you, call you out, and call you higher. You want work that matters, conversations that awaken, environments that elevate, and most of all, you want peace. Not just the kind that comes from external quiet, but the kind that comes from internal honesty. This is the power of seeing through the illusions. You reclaim your life. You realize that no amount of pretending can give you what you're really looking for. You can't fake fulfillment. You can't decorate dysfunction and call it success. You can't keep lying to yourself and expect to feel whole. At some point, you have to decide that truth matters more than comfort. And when you rip away the illusions and choose to live honestly, that's when the real change begins. Because now you're no longer building on shaky ground. You're no longer creating a life that looks good on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. You're building something real, something solid, something that can stand. And no, it won't be easy. There will be loss. There will be moments of doubt. You'll grieve the life you thought you wanted, but what you gain in return, clarity, freedom, alignment, self-respect, is worth every uncomfortable step. So if life feels like it's falling apart right now, maybe it's not. Maybe the illusions are just falling away. And maybe, just maybe, that's the beginning of everything real. Finally coming into focus. There's a moment in your journey when you realize not everything requires an announcement. You stop broadcasting your every move, every goal, every plan, not because you're hiding, but because you're building. And when you're ready to change for real, you don't need to convince anyone anymore. You stop performing for the crowd and start performing for your future. You begin to understand that growth doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it happens in the quiet moments when no one is watching. When you choose to keep going, even when your motivation is gone. When you wake up early, even though no one is giving you applause. When you sit with your own discomfort instead of running from it. When you stop reacting to every opinion, every distraction, every petty conflict, and start preserving your energy for what actually matters. This is the shift. You stop being reactive and start being intentional. The version of you that needed to prove yourself fades out. Now you're not looking for validation, you're looking for alignment. People may think you're distant. They'll say you've changed, and you have, but not because you're bitter, because you're focused. You're done explaining yourself. You're done convincing people to understand your path. You've outgrown the need for permission. Now you let your actions speak. Now you let your growth be the proof. There's something powerful about moving in silence. It protects your process. It gives you space to make mistakes, to adjust, to figure things out without judgment. It lets you be in the lab, not on display. It's no longer about how fast you can get there. It's about how deeply you're willing to commit when no one's clapping for you. You start setting boundaries, not because you're mean, but because your peace is priceless. You stop saying yes to things that drain you. You start saying no without guilt. You realize that being nice isn't the same as being loyal to your purpose. You don't owe access to people who constantly misuse it. You stop posting your every move. You stop sharing every detail of your life. Why? Because you've learned that real power is quiet. The strongest people don't need to announce their strength. They walk in it. Confidence doesn't scream. It moves with calm certainty. When you're really transforming, your priorities change. You begin to value solitude, not because you're antisocial, but because silence is where strategy is born. Silence is where you listen to yourself. You can't hear your next step if you're constantly surrounded by noise. So you start pulling back, not to isolate, but to elevate. You realize how precious your time is. You don't have space for chaos, for gossip, for surface level connections. You want conversations that grow you, people who challenge you, environments that stretch you. Anything less than that, it's a distraction. And distractions are expensive. They steal your time, your focus, your energy. When you move quietly, you get your time back. You stop leaking energy. You stop chasing people. You stop explaining your boundaries. You don't announce the chapter. You just turn the page. People used to know everything about your life. Now, they'll see the results. They won't know what you're building until it's built. They won't know what you're planning until it's executed. And that mystery, that silence, is your protection. Because you know that not everyone watching is rooting for you. Some people just want front row seats to your failure. So you stop giving them access. You start investing in yourself. Not in a performative way, but in a deep, disciplined way. You start reading more, thinking more, working on your mindset. You wake up earlier. You audit your habits. You focus on your body, your mental health, your routines. You start choosing what's difficult now so you can have what's meaningful later. And this shift isn't glamorous. It's lonely. It's gritty. It's slow, but it's solid. And when you move like this quietly, but with intention, you become dangerous to your old life. You become a threat to your old habits, your old cycles, your old patterns. You start building a foundation so strong that nothing temporary can shake it. And when people finally do see you, they'll say it happened overnight. They'll say you're lucky. They'll think you just showed up one day and everything worked. But they won't see the early mornings. They won't see the nights you cried and kept going. They won't see the sacrifices, the hours, the quiet grind, the internal battles you fought and won alone. You'll know the truth though. You'll know it was built in silence, fueled by focus, backed by consistency. This is when change becomes permanent. When it's not about proving anything, but about becoming everything you were meant to be, quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. So if you're pulling back right now, if you're working in the dark while the world watches someone else shine, good. Stay there, stay focused, stay hungry, because the moment you show up again, you won't need to explain a thing. Your work will speak, your energy will speak, your transformation will speak, and it will be loud even though you never said a word. There's a moment in the process of transformation that doesn't come with a loud bang or a dramatic epiphany. It comes quietly. It sneaks up on you in the middle of an ordinary day when you suddenly look around at your life and realize something radical. You've always had the power. It was never out there, not in the hands of your parents, not in your job, not in a relationship, not in society. It was never in some book or course or motivational quote. You've spent years thinking you were waiting for something, the right time, the right person, the right opportunity. But what you were really doing was waiting for permission, waiting for someone to tell you, you're enough now. You can go. But no one ever said that, did they? No one came, because that was never their role. It's always been yours. At first, this truth is painful because it means you've been giving your power away for years. You've been handing it over to people who didn't deserve it, situations that didn't require it, moments that didn't serve you. You let your life be dictated by fear, by approval, by the need to be accepted, validated, loved, seen. You didn't trust yourself, so you looked outward. And when things didn't work out, when you felt stuck, you blamed the world. You blamed the system. You blamed timing. You blamed your past, your trauma, your family, your boss, your ex, your circumstances. Anything to avoid the one truth that was too heavy to carry, that maybe you had more control than you admitted. But when you're truly ready to change, you don't avoid that truth anymore. You stand in it. You sit with the discomfort of it. You let it burn. Because deep down, that truth is what sets you free. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you understand it, you stop waiting to be saved. You realize no one is coming, and instead of that breaking you, it builds you. You stop looking for a rescuer and start becoming your own savior. You stop needing external motivation and start relying on discipline. You stop seeking comfort and start seeking growth. You stop praying for miracles and start doing the work that makes miracles possible. You start asking better questions. Not why is this happening to me, but what can I do about it? Not when will things change, but how can I start changing them? That's when you shift from victim to warrior, from passive to powerful, from surviving to leading. You don't need to be the most talented. You don't need to have the perfect plan. You don't need a massive following or a flawless track record. What you need is to take radical ownership of your life, to stop waiting, to stop doubting, to stop asking for permission to become everything you already are. You look around and see that the doors aren't locked. You just never turned the handle. You realize you were never stuck. You were scared to risk, to fail, to be seen, trying, scared to outgrow the people who loved the older, smaller version of you, scared to leave the comfort of who you've always been, to meet the unknown version of who you're meant to be. But now you've lived through enough to know that fear is not the enemy. Stagnation is. So you start doing the work quietly, daily, consistently. You build new habits. You take better care of your body. You stop wasting time. You create boundaries. You learn how to say no. You learn how to say yes to yourself. You stop asking, am I ready? And start declaring, I'm becoming ready. You no longer wait for the pain to go away to make a move. You move with the pain. You no longer wait for the perfect moment. You create the moment. You no longer depend on someone else to believe in you. You believe in yourself, not because you feel like it every day, but because you've made a decision. You've decided to stop living like a prisoner in a life that's meant to be your masterpiece. And sure, people will question your change. Some will mock it. Some will distance themselves. That's okay. That's part of it. Because stepping into your power will always offend those who benefit from your weakness. But you'll keep going. Not for them. Not for applause. For you. Because now you know the truth. No one can save you. But no one can stop you either. You begin to rebuild from within. You begin to take action from a place of clarity and confidence. And even when fear whispers, even when doubt creeps in, even when you're tired and nothing feels like it's working, you keep going because now you understand that power is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move anyway. The strongest version of you was never missing. It was just buried under years of noise, fear, and false beliefs. But now you've cleared the path. You've come home to yourself. So no, you're not waiting anymore. You're creating, you're building, you're becoming. And the most powerful part, you're doing it with what you've always had inside of you because the power was never missing. It was always you. You've made it this far because something inside you refused to quit even when everything around you told you to give up. You faced the lies, the pain, the illusions, the silence, and now you see the truth for what it is. You are not powerless. You never were. Change isn't some lightning strike that happens overnight. It's a choice, one you make every single day, every single moment. It's not about waiting to feel ready. It's about deciding you're done living beneath your potential. It's about taking ownership of your mind, your actions, your life, no matter how messy, how hard, or how far you think you've fallen. You don't need a rescue plan. You need resolve. You don't need more time. You need more honesty. You don't need everyone to understand your journey. You just need to trust yourself enough to take the first step, and then another and another until your actions start reflecting the power that's been buried in you all along. This is your wake-up call, your turning point, your moment to stop waiting for change and become it. So stand up, straighten your spine, look your life in the face and say, I'm not asking for permission anymore. I'm taking the lead. Because the future doesn't belong to the perfect. It belongs to the courageous, to those who are willing to face themselves and rise anyway. This is your time. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Change starts now.